5, 6, 7, 8. Rasquat.
Let's talk about Rasquats.
Rasquat.
I'm really excited.
Squad.
Yeah, Sookie. We should have said Sookie. That would have been fun. Well, too late now. Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Gilmore to Say with Tara and Haley. I'm Tara. This is Haley. Hi, Haley.
Hi, Tara.
I love your curly hair today.
Thank you. My Florida girl curls.
Yes. Florida girly curly.
Florida girly curly. Can I tell you something about our last episode? Mm-hmm. It's funny that you say that because you also started our last episode with a compliment for me.
I did.
I was wearing yellow.
Mm-hmm. With your side pony.
And with my side pony, a classic Tara fave of Haley. And it reminded me, like I was trying to figure out why I got so like taken aback by what you said. And I realized it was because it sounded like, I love you, Luke Days.
I love you. So funfunny.
And that's exactly what it sounded like. And that's why I was like, wait, why are we, what? Okay.
All right.
Compliment. Here we are.
Yeah.
I was taken aback. But then when I like heard it back, I was like, oh, right.
Compliments. Yeah. No, I really like today. If you're with us on YouTube, you can see Haley's Florida curls.
Yeah.
Just
nice
in
and rainy
full
outside.
swing.
So it gives that little curl pattern.
Yeah.
Summer girl.
Love that for you.
Thank you so much.
We are really excited because today is, of course, our Sookie and Jackson episode. We're celebrating their anniversary, their 23rd anniversary. Good for them.
Gosh.
And many more. And
many more. And Mandy Moore.
Yes, exactly. She's also there. And I'm really excited that we also chose today to release our stamps merch, our Sending All Our Love merch.
Love the stamps collection.
The stamps collection is pretty fantastic. And
this is one of my favorite ones we've done.
I think so too. And I have to tell you, I keep seeing things now. Like I was at TJ Maxx the other day and I saw this bag that had like, stamps and like stamp doodles all over it. And I was like, oh my God, that's like our stamp collection.
Oh my gosh.
It's our Sending All My Love collection, which I love that name that you came up with. You were like, I'm seeing it as like a Sending All My Love. And I was like, oh, I love it.
Because it's a stamp. You send your love. And I also love it because it's like you're sending your love of your favorite thing, which is Gilmore Girls, because it's that kind of shirt that like, if you love Gilmore Girls, like if you're at the grocery store, you're wearing your shirt, it has a Jeep stamp, a gazebo stamp. Someone immediately is like, yes, Gilmore Girls, I get it. They get closer. They see the umbrella. They see the ace. They see the book. They're like, yes, I'm here for it. But if you don't know Gilmore Girls, it's like, oh, love your stamps.
Yeah. Cute stamps. I like the swan stamp.
I love the swan stamp.
The swan is one of my favorites. Yeah. I really love it. We came up with this so quickly, you and I, like once we found the design in our minds, like together, we were like,
once we like came up with it, like and made the list of everything we wanted.
It happened really fast. And shout out to Emily Kelly who designed it. She quite literally designed this in like, what, 2 days?
A day, 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that she can always take what we give her and bring it to life.
Yeah.
And
we're like very specific too. And I'm always like, don't hate us, like, but change this tiny little itty bitty thing. And she actually loves it. She loves that sort of feedback. So I always feel like we're difficult clients because it's like we see such a clear vision of what we want. And I think that when they come together as quickly as this one did, we end up like adoring it, loving it. But when like it takes us like a while to get there, those are usually ones that like never see the light of day. And we're like, okay, scrap this one. Like this isn't working. Totally. But because it like we were just like both so on the same page, trying new things with it because I love the colors. It feels so summer, which is why I love it so much because it's yellow and pink and green, and even like the images feel very summery. I think the Jeep feels summery.
Yeah,
a basket,
the daisies,
being attacked by a swan, a book,
a book. Yeah, it's very fun. So you can check that out, of course, at www.gilmoretosay.com and check out our Sending All My Love collection.
Yeah.
We're really excited
about
this one. Do
you have a fave piece from it?
I think the butter yellow tee is always one of my faves.
You love a butter yellow.
But I love the glass, the can-shaped glass that has the stamps all over it for me. It's just so cute.
I know.
What about you?
That's my favorite. Yeah.
It's so good. We love the can-shaped glass. We put pretty much anything on that and it always looks good. Shout out to the can-shaped glass. Snaps for the can-shaped glass. She looks good in whatever outfit we put her in.
Yeah, and I think it's because like I love to make an iced coffee in it because the ratios can be so perfect in that. Like it's the perfect amount of like morning iced coffee, I think. So I always use all of ours. I have all of them sitting above my Nespresso, so I can always reach for one of those, which I love. I love so much.
So you can check that out at our website. You all know it.
Again, the www is important.
It is very important. But we wanted to release that today in honor of Sookie and Jackson's anniversary. Talk about sending all my love. This is a couple that a lot of people love. They have a lot of love between each other. And last year, to celebrate their 22nd anniversary, we talked about the character of Sookie because we had not really talked about Sookie. We talked about her very peripherally in like how she was, you know, Lorelai's one of Lorelai's best friends and, you know, what she adds to Lorelai's life. But we had never really broken her down as a character. So it was really cool to do that and then kind of touch on her relationship with Jackson. We talked about Jackson a little bit because we'd put out a lot of polls last year on socials being like, hey, what do you love? What do you maybe not love so much? And there was a very visceral reaction to Jackson and the vasectomy, which we talked about in great detail last year. So if you want to hear us talk about it, it's the episode is called Sookie and like Sadie, which she says, and I thought was so perfect. Sadie, married lady. Yeah. And so if you want to listen to our thoughts on that and how that could have been changed, we did talk about that in the Sookie episode. We're probably not going to talk about it much today.
We also talked about it recently on Patreon.
We did because we just covered that episode.
It happened. Yeah, because we covered that episode and like we like completely rewrote it how we would have wanted it to be. Yeah. So if you want to find out there, you can also listen to that. Which is To Whom It May Concern.
Yes, I think so. Tragically bad episode. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, one of the worst episodes of Gilmore Girls.
Ever.
That one.
Quite literally
of
ever.
all time.
Yeah. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. But we've made it past that. And
we made it through the wilderness, if you will.
Yeah, we did. We made it through. And
through.
It's what she says.
That is what that sings, but you did say it. When I was reviewing Sookie, just to kind of like get an idea of what we had said, just to change things up to like review past thoughts that we had, which we are known to not do.
Yeah.
I listened to it at 2.8 speed just so that I could like
get through
hear
it.
Hear what we were saying. Never do that because the way that we laugh on 2.8 speed is like my nightmare.
Really
like,
bad.
I'm gonna have nightmares about the sound of laughing at 2.8 speed. Give it a try. If you're feeling like, you know, silly goosey Lucy, just turn us up to 2.8 right now and see what happens.
Please
Welcome
don't.
To your new nightmare.
I listened to that episode on 2 speed because I wanted to kind of comb through it.
Yeah, you just want to get
fast.
through it just to
kind of hear the Reader's Digest version, and that's the way to get through us on a Reader's Digest level is to put us on 2 speed or 2.8 speed for some of us.
Yeah,
I didn't really notice the laughter
you
being
didn't hear
so
like the
oh,
that's what it sounds like.
No, but when I re-listened to it, I did realize that this was the episode where I was a scientist.
Yeah,
because you were talking about substars, and I was like, I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, and I literally was just trying to remember guest star, featured actor.
You were like, that's not what we're talking about here. Go.
Yeah. No, that was a fun episode. I really enjoyed that one. Which we mentioned in that one that we enjoyed prepping for it. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That one a listen from May of last year.
Yeah, definitely. And it was so fun because Sookie is such a fun character. And I know that in that episode, we talked about her. We talked about some of our favorite Sookie moments. And we even went on to talk about some of our favorite Sookie and Jackson moments. But we kind of wanted to save breaking their relationship down for another episode because we wanted it to be more Sookie focused. And so that's what we're here to do this year. And where we landed on, like, by the end of the episode is that they're a pretty beloved couple and we like them.
Yeah.
And we like their relationship. I think that part of the reason we wanted to hold off on really diving into their relationship is because at the time that we recorded it, we had just wrapped up season 4 and we were like,
we went on a high.
We were on a true high and we were really starting season 5 and we wanted to kind of save talking about them until we had gotten into the later seasons because we knew that there was a shift coming. And maybe we didn't know so much, but we wanted to see if there was a big shift in their relationship. We anticipated a shift.
Yeah.
And boy, did we get one. So I'm intrigued to talk about that today. But we're, of course, going to start with the early seasons. And we're going to kind of move through it and talk a little bit more about Jackson than we did in the last episode, because we didn't really touch on his character as an individual. I feel like Sookie and Jackson are characters that start out as individuals and then become an entity in a lot of ways.
It's that thing of like when you're a single person and you sign a birthday card, it's I love you. And then suddenly when you're in a couple and it's from the both of you, it's always we love you.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
I never thought about that.
And it never changes. Oh, I think about that all the time.
You do?
All the time. It's just something. It's like, oh my gosh, we love you. Even if it's like you're sending a text like, oh, we love you. Well, I want to hear it from them. This is from you.
That's true. That's
true.
Do
you guys talk about me and talk about how much you love me?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Brett and I talk about how much we love you. Brett literally hijacked my phone the other night and sent you a photo.
Oh, that is so true. Brett does that often. He'll send me a little voice memo from Tara's phone.
That's true. And be like, hi, Haley, we need to talk.
Yeah. That's so fair.
But that's interesting. I never really thought about that because you're right. Now that Brett and I are a we, and we're a more established we live together, we sign things, or I sign things for like, not necessarily birthdays, but Christmas definitely as we. We
love you. Yeah. I guess it would be weird to say I love you and so do I. It makes sense.
I'm just picturing that in a card. I love you, Tara. Brett's in the corner in the margins going, and so do I.
And so
Brett.
do I.
Wait, I'm so going to put that in your next birthday card. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Damn, that's funny. That's really funny.
It's like you don't even consult him. Like, does he love this person?
Yeah, I think that's true.
We love you.
It's usually from family, or for family, rather. It's like, we love you.
Sometimes, but like sometimes like my married friends, they like when I say like, oh, I miss you, or like they'll say like, we love you. I don't know them. I mean, I guess I do, but like.
You've thought about this a lot.
Oh, I think about this all the time.
Wow.
Like if like your closest friend wrote, we love you, love this person and my husband. It's like, well, I barely know them, but okay.
Well, I think that there's something to be said about like, this is one of my best friends. So if I love her, you love her.
Yeah. You've been forced into this we.
Yeah. Now we're married or now we're together. So you must.
I will say the only person that I like truly, really accept it from is my brother and sister-in-law.
Well, of course.
We love you individually.
Yeah. Because that is factual.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Anyway, this was a tangent. So Sookie and Jackson.
They become a we. They sign all their cards we, but before they signed them all I.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But what I really love about kind of thinking about Sookie and Jackson's relationship is I was thinking about them as we move through the series and what phases we see them in, and they really can be broken down per season. I'd argue that season 1 is like their courtship phase. Season 2 is their kind of courtship phase. They're exiting that into their engagement phase.
Wait, Tara, I did the same thing.
You did?
Yeah. Like it's like it's the entirety of their courting.
Yeah.
Is what I put for season 1. And I was like, and this is the lead up to their engagement. That's so weird.
We spend way too much time together. We have officially
I guess it
melded
makes sense.
minds.
We have melded minds for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess it just like it naturally makes sense through the progression, which is I think why I wanted to break this down by season. It does feel like a little bit like in review now that we've gotten to the end of the series. Not the end, but
we're
like,
approaching the end.
For the most part, we've reached the end of their relationship in the original series. And I wanted to go back through and see if like what we felt in that first episode, it's like remains to be true after getting through 5, 6, and most of 7. But yeah, it really is seasonal or seasonal is the wrong word to say, by season of the show.
Yeah, which I don't know if you can say that for a lot of relationships on this show because theirs is established in season 1 and it progresses throughout. Whereas a lot of the other relationships, with maybe the exception of Emily and Richard, though they go through phases,
Yes, but not as like clean cut as like it's literally like courtship, engagement, marriage and babies, having babies. And then as we go through 5, 6, and 7, they get a little bit kookier. But yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny that you broke this into phases. So maybe we'll go through that as we go through each season.
Yeah.
So starting with season 1, we of course called that the courtship phase, which I love them in season 1. This is some of the best of them in season 1.
I think that, not to like jump the gun, I do think season 1 Sookie and Jackson is my favorite version of them. Yeah.
Understandably so. Courtship is some of the best of any couple.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes sense that it would be some of the best of them because you're meeting them as individuals. You're meeting Sookie more because she's so much more integrated into the lives of the Gilmore girls, who of course are the central focus. Jackson is more of an outskirts towny character, but I love that you get to know them kind of as individuals before you get to know them as a couple.
Yeah. Or that it's very clear that they're going to be a couple because they have like the most perfect setup, the two of them, of like a chef and her like produce supplier. Yeah. I just think that's so cute. I told my sister what episode I was recording and she goes, "Oh, he's the fruit boy." I said, "Produce farmer, fruit boy, whatever you want."
Fruit boy. That's fine. Yeah. We can call him that.
And so
Mushroom
like
man.
Mushroom man. They're so perfectly paired together that it's like, oh, of course they are. But yeah, we do get like a good sense of who the both of them are. As this is happening, like I think that the main reason I like that, like their relationship, and not just their relationship, both of them in season 1, is because we're establishing so much of who they are that is like the rest of the series is relying on this establishment that we're having. Like every time Jackson comes into the kitchen at the Independence Inn, like those are some of my favorite scenes between the two of them.
Totally.
Like the bickering, the bantering, the fighting that takes place over produce.
Over something as simple as strawberries. I love the scene between the two of them in Kill Me Now when I know we talked about this last year, but when she needs the strawberries, she's like, "I needed the strawberries." And just the intensity between the two of them over something. And that's Gilmore Girls, right? Is like making a mountain out of a molehill in the most delicious way. And this is no exception. It's just so funny the way that they argue. And then like he gets really upset and he runs away and she's like, "Jackson, come back here." They start chasing each other through the street.
Looking at them at Dosey's.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so good. And that's the 3rd episode of the entire series. It kicks us off really beautifully. So it's established quite early on that there is this very yummy dynamic between the two of them that eventually blossoms into a romance. And I know squash blossoms. It's so funny because last year we were talking about how maybe in this episode that we did breaking them down, we would roast them a little bit. And I was like, the irony of roasting a chef and a vegetable guy is just so funny.
Roast a little squash.
Yeah, we're just going to
roast a potato.
Roast and toast them a little bit. But no, I think it's a really good setup. And there are people who, we also put a question box up and I wrote some of the answers down that people gave as feedback if they weren't necessarily fans of Sookie and Jackson, because I do think they're very beloved. But some people were like, well, would she have dated him if he wasn't her produce guy, if he wasn't just there in the episode Paris is Burning when Lorelai makes the comment she does about not having dated in years and immediately, apologizes for it. It's harsh.
We did talk about that.
We talked about it. It's like, did Sookie really have feelings for him? Or was it just like, oh, this is a guy that, I see often. Why not? But
want to try it out.
I do think that they were establishing this banter, bicker, fun relationship prior to that even being on the table. So I do think that sometimes people are right in front of your face and that is why you start dating them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong.
Yeah, I actually think there could be two like views on that. Is like she felt a certain way after Lorelai kind of made her feel embarrassed or feel bad about having not dated recently, and it gave her that little boost of like, okay, I'm gonna say something. Like it's given me this sense of like I need to say something to this person who I have feelings for, or it's the other side of like I just need to say something to anyone.
Yeah,
and that's who was there. But I think it's the first one. I do think that she had feelings for him.
Yeah, I think that she starts to realize like, oh, I've never necessarily put myself out there, even when the opportunity is like right in front of my face, and this is right in front of my face. So let's go for it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that moment between the two of them where they are arguing and bickering, and he's just like, here you go. Here's your produce. And she's like, would you like to go on a date with me? Okay. It's so cute. It's so wholesome. And not to bury the lead, but like, I really do think we lose some of that between the two of them as the series goes on, that like they are very funny, but it's also paired with this like endearment and this soft side and this tenderness that I think is missing when we get to those later seasons for me.
I think so too. No, and that's what I was saying before about like the establishment of their characters in this season. Like the rest of the seasons kind of lean upon that, like your base understanding of them to continue to feel that way about them. And like naturally your relationship is going to change as you become more comfortable with someone.
Course.
But I do feel like those like silly tender moments where like you said, Gilmore Girls does that so well, where you're just being like so intense, it switches to like everyone's mac and cheese moment. And they're like, oh, okay. And like, it definitely feels like early relationship where you're like, oh my gosh, like you're kind of shy, but like they're really cute. And like when we get to Double Date and they have their like second date at Luke's and you're just like watching them, I don't feel like we have those like cutie moments as much. It's a lot more, they're a lot more comic relief than they are like tenderness between them. There's some moments where it does.
Yeah. And I wrote that down as well. They become more of the comedic relief than they do.
Yeah.
Like then they have the nuance that they have here in season 1 where it's really balanced quite beautifully.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much our gripe with season 7 as a whole, is that the writers really relied on already established moments like this to carry through their storyline without continuing to carry the torch of these really beautiful, complex, balanced moments that toe the line between fun and funny and soft and tender.
Yeah. And I will even go as far as to say for Sookie and Jackson, I'll extend that into season 6, that
I agree.
They kind of have that same idea. I will say that season 7 is a lot heavier in that usage of it, and it is widespread, but I would say Sookie and Jackson are kind of that way in season 6.
I agree. And we'll talk about it a little more when we get there.
Yeah. We still have a couple seasons to get through. But in season 1, I think my favorite thing about Jackson, which you used to talk about all the time on Patreon, was his cross-pollination of fruits and vegetables.
I loved that. And I really, really miss that with him. I thought that was so cool.
He had a true passion.
Rasquat.
Rasquat.
Yeah, he loved that. He loved cross-pollinating fruit and vegetables. And it was, I thought, a really fun and quirky attribute. And it gets lost throughout the series. It kind of bums me out. I miss that. But it's then kind of made up for in him, like sleeping with the zucchini and the building of his greenhouse and stuff that is quirky. Maybe building a greenhouse isn't necessarily quirky, but you know what I'm saying? Like sleeping with the zucchini is quirky.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's made up for there, but that establishment of him being a cross-pollinator and making his own like different kinds of fruits and vegetables, I thought was so cool. And I wish we could have pulled at that thread a lot more. As we rewatch the series later this year, I kind of want to remind ourselves like where that falls off.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that we actually necessarily figured that out. Because I know we talked about it a lot on Patreon, but I don't remember where it falls off, that we like don't ever really hear about it again.
Yeah.
Because it does eventually fall off.
Because he used to come in and have her try things, and I don't know when that ends.
And he has her come in and try things like the tomatoes and stuff that's like, this is the best tomato I've ever had, and stuff like that. But it's just it hits a little different when it's not his own, concoctions of the Rasquat. Or isn't a zucchini tush something that is a zucchini tush an actual vegetable, or is that something he comes up with?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either.
Should we look it up?
It's a him thing.
Oh.
You want me to serve my customers a genetically engineered vegetable that's named after a butt, is what Sookie says. And he says, hey, this is an all-natural vegetable hybrid that is perfectly safe, completely delicious. And yes, it looks a little odd, but you can put it on the map. So
What episode was this?
This was in Paris is Burning. So this is
okay.
Because I believe that she wants Brussels sprouts. And so at the end, he brings her the Brussels sprouts.
Oh, here are your Brussels sprouts. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
when she asked him on the date.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Their relationship was born over a zucchini tush. How could we forget?
And how funny is that? That's the thing, is that it's so subtly funny, and it doesn't need to be like in your face funny, which is some of the stuff we get in the later seasons between the two of them, which we'll get into then. But I think it's very sweet and also very hilarious. So I do miss the cross-pollination, but we get a lot of that in season 1. And for all of the ways in which I love them in season 1, here's my one gripe that I had with our man Jackson. And I talked about this on Patreon. I wish that he had stood up for Lorelai more on that double date that they went on with Rune.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that.
I really wish that he would have been like, Rune, shut the fuck up. Stop talking about her like that. Stop talking about her at all. Have you seen yourself? Have you looked in the mirror? You look like a toe. And you have the audacity to talk about that. And Jackson was like, she's a really nice lady. I'm like, no, Jackson, she's really nice, smart, funny, and she's drop dead gorgeous. And this man looks like a golf tee. Like he looks like a featured character in a Dickens novel. This guy is.
No, he really did.
He wishes he had a chance with Lorelai Gilmore. Please be so serious. But that's my only gripe.
Golf tee is so specific.
I don't know why. He just kind of looked like, I was just like, you look like a very basic
put a ball on
thing.
his head and hit him.
Yeah. Kind of that. Anyway, that was my only gripe I had with Jackson in season 1. Everything else just felt so sweet, so organic, no pun intended. So
aw,
like
lovely.
Organic. Yeah.
Cute.
Their
Wait,
love is
I love
organic.
that. Why am I like, that's I love an earnest pun, if you will. I think I agree for the most part, because we did like Rune in that episode. I remember a lot of people are not Rune fans.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, he serves the plot so beautifully.
He really does. The plot moves forward at the row of Rune, rowing the plot along. I don't know why he's in a boat. It seemed to make sense.
I don't know why he was a golf tree. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my mind, but here we are.
Here we are. But yeah, no, I think I agree. I think that he could have stood up for her friend a little more, and his friend. Lorelai is his friend, which they very much established. But yeah, I think for the most part, I really do appreciate and love their courting that they have.
Now, the only time we really get Jackson outside of this narrative of him being the vegetable guy for the Independence Inn, having the relationship he does with Sookie and Lorelai, is in Christopher Returns, when Chris shows up.
Oh, right.
And he's just like, hey, buddy, Jackson Melville, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that was a really interesting
and then he's
angle
like
to
recounting everything.
And then he's kind of gossiping in town. He's
that
kind of holding
so
court over Chris, and Chris hears it. And then he turns around and kind of like gives him a look and then runs away.
Scurries, if you will.
Scurries. He really scurries away. And it's so funny because we don't really ever get a lot of Jackson moments outside of the narrative of Sookie and Lorelai and the inn.
Yeah.
And then eventually him becoming Sookie's husband.
Well, when he's friends with Gypsy.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like doing the egg.
Jinx. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that. So I like I do kind of like when they pull him out into the town a little bit
I
like
do
that.
too.
Because like, doesn't it make so much sense that Jackson would be a gossip?
Oh, fully.
Like,
fully.
I feel like of the two of them, Jackson is the gossiper.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. I feel
like
Sookie's
they're both gossiper.
Well, maybe that's
something
gossip
girls.
Maybe that's something they connect on.
Being the town gossips. Yeah.
Yeah. But this brings us.
I would love a podcast between the two of them.
That would be fun. Yeah.
Organic conversation.
Oh, love. That would be really fun.
Yeah.
So when we move into season 2, I think we're still in kind of their best of era. Like, I still think we're riding that train. But
choo-choo.
Choo-choo.
You went like that.
I did. I was conducting.
That was like the most ant thing.
There's still some courtship here. Of course, it's leading to their engagement. But this is where we start to lay the foundation that Sookie and Jackson are not really the best communicators with each other.
Yeah.
Their like one fatal flaw, in my opinion, is that they do not know how to communicate with each other. And that is kind of exemplified in Hammers and Veils when Lorelai's getting married, and it's like, I mean, she's getting married, and he's like, cool, that's great, that's awesome. And then like he leaves and scurries out because he doesn't know what kind of vegetables are romantic, and he gets really overwhelmed. And Lorelai and Sookie make a joke about it, being like, uh-oh, Jackson's got like panicked, my girlfriend is talking about marriage face on. She's like, great, let's tell him you're pregnant. Like she wants to play into it. And by the end of the episode, when they're at that engagement party for Max and Lorelai, he says something to the effect of like, all right, listen, I'm not ready to get married, which is super understandable because they've been dating for like 5 minutes. He's like, but I would be willing to move in. And she just laughs it off. She's like, oh, okay, I'll move in with you. She's like, she's laughing it off. But that story comes back into play in A Tisket a Tasket when he comes to her and says, my lease is up at my apartment. She's like, great. Okay. And he's like,
you have a great apartment.
Yeah, you have a great apartment. And he's like, so should I resign? And she's like, yeah, why not? Because he's not asking her, like, do you want to move in together? He just says, should I resign? You can't think of any reason why I wouldn't want to resign my lease. And she's like, nope. And she tells him to resign his lease. And then he gets all bent out of shape, doesn't bid on her basket. We all know how it goes.
It's like, that's like, I hate though. Like, I know that like they are miscommunicators for the plot. I would say that's most people on this show's fatal flaw is the miscommunicating. I'd say Dean is sleeping with someone else when he was married, but what do you do? But yeah, I think that was like not to jump the gun, my least favorite part of the season is like him not bidding on her basket.
Yeah, that is a quality I think that a lot of
bid on her basket.
I know that a lot of people in our question box were saying that they didn't love that he did that either, that they felt like he kind of has a tendency as a character to lean into like childish temper tantrums like that. And that felt like a very immature move. Obviously, it services the plot. He doesn't bid on the basket because he's feeling low that, you know, he's like, I don't really know where we stand because I said I wanted to re-sign my lease, or I didn't want to re-sign my lease and you said I should. And that means that we're not moving in together. I thought maybe we'd want to move in together. And to kind of meet him where he's at, that conversation they have afterwards, Sookie's like, well, I haven't really thought about it. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were on the same page and we're clearly not. My mistake. And she's like, I lied. I have thought about it. I hate that conversation between the two of them. Just that moment. Where I'm like,
I lied.
Jackson, I lied. I'm like, what was this? What was this? And she tells him that I have thought about it. Our bathroom's going to be pink. And he's like, okay, then why didn't you tell me? And it's clearly this like, hey, we need to talk to each other more kind of moment. And it leads
before
to this,
I don't bid on your basket.
Right. It leads to this really beautiful moment, which you know is my favorite proposal in the series, which is Sookie and Jackson on the picnic blanket. And she's talking about like, okay, I'd be like, let's talk about moving in together. I'd be open to that. And he's like, no, I don't think so. Let's get married. And it's...
Are you pregnant?
Are you pregnant? It's so cute. And so I love the outcome of it. But it is a very... When you think about it outside of, you know, the show and like the beautiful nature that is Sookie and Jackson and how cute they are. And the intention for the writers to just create a little, like stir up a little bit of nonsense for them before they get engaged.
Yeah.
It is a little puzzling to me that we went from like... oh, Sookie and Jackson are kind of talking about moving in together. Sookie's not really taking it seriously. Jackson apparently doesn't say anything to her about it that makes her think he's serious.
Big feelings about it.
And then it kind of ends up blowing up in their faces. And then when they do resolve it, it's like, all right, actually, let's get married. And I'm like, wait, in Hammers and Veils, you said you weren't ready to get married. You know, it's just kind of a little... It's cute. It's cute and I love it. But when you think about it just a little harder than you should, as we like to do on this show, it's a little bit like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is we are, of course, in season 7 on Patreon, and they were asking us about like, do we think we would enjoy this more if we didn't know that Amy hadn't written season 7? And I said, actually, I think we would enjoy this more if we weren't watching this so intently that we were taking notes on every single thing that was going on in the show. And I think that that's the instance for this is like, if you just kind of like get absorbed in the show and the narrative and the style of things, it just seems fun and kooky that these two people can't get on the same page. He doesn't buy her basket. But when you step back and look at it, you're like, toxic. Didn't communicate what he wanted.
Correct.
Hoped that you understood and then didn't buy your basket that you made specifically for him.
Totally. It is a little, it makes you go a little like, Jackson.
Can we find someone else? Perhaps some other kind of farmer?
Totally.
Yeah.
It is, again, I think just something that the writers wanted to throw in to like shake things up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you take a step back, I think it does aid in this. It contributes to this idea that Jackson's a little bit childish in some of his reactions to things. And I'm inclined to agree with that.
I think that after season 1, I think that Jackson, his like season 2 established character is a little childish. Like that's kind of the direction that we take him in a townie. Like he's not quite Kirk and he's not as serious as Taylor. But like I think that in terms of townies, he kind of falls in like the middle of that spectrum.
Somewhere in between. No, I totally agree.
Which is not to say that he's like an adjusted adult. That's not the middle of that spectrum.
No.
On no part of that spectrum is an adjusted, like well-regulated adult.
Yeah.
Emotionally regulated, if you will. Yeah.
Totally. But I'd agree with that. He falls somewhere in between. Yeah. But it doesn't mean I don't like him necessarily. But I think that is a huge reason why people tend to be like, meh, about his character sometimes, less about the two of them as a couple. But this for me is where I'm like, oh, Sookie and Jackson are not great communicators with each other, which does contribute to their comedy. So
yes, of course. And like that's the thing is they are like always that comic relief, which we talked about before, that like they have less of that tenderness as we go along. But there is that tenderness in the engagement. Like it seems like they kind of, I mean, Sookie does follow it up with a joke, but it does seem to lend to that.
So
part
cute. That's why it's always my favorite. I cry every time I watch it. It's so cute. And I really, really, really do like Jackson through the rest of season 2. Like I love him in Secrets and Loans, which is of course before Tisket a Tasket. I love the pajamas, the wrestling pajamas. And the fact that he's like Sookie's hiding him in the pantry because, you know, they don't want like Lorelai and Rory to feel uncomfortable, and he doesn't want to feel uncomfortable because he's wearing his wrestling pajamas.
Naturally.
I like him in the Dead Uncles and Vegetables episode where Sookie and Emily are like, you know, measuring the town, and he goes to Lorelai and he's like, I really didn't want this. Like that's a really sweet moment for him and Lorelai to go to her best friend and be like, hey, look at what they're doing. This is not the sweet and simple wedding that I was planning with my fiance, and now I'm feeling really ostracized from this whole process.
Yeah.
It made me think about the fact that in Dead Uncles and Vegetables, Jackson has absolutely no problem or qualms with the vegetable guy.
I was going to say that. I was like, isn't it funny that Jackson's storyline in an episode called Dead Uncles and Vegetables
has nothing to do with vegetables?
It's about his wedding.
Yeah.
He has no problem with the Kinko's and Groton worker troubadour opening a farmer's market in the middle of the square.
Hilarious.
Where he lives, where he's a farmer.
I literally was thinking about this while I was prepping for this episode. I put in parentheses, where was his beef with the vegetable guy?
Well, and you're a vegetable guy, you don't have any
beef. It's true.
He doesn't want his meat cut up.
He doesn't.
We'll get to that. But I wonder if it would have been interesting for the Second Town Troubadour to have gotten his vegetables from Jackson.
Well, then Jackson would have sold them.
Would he?
I imagine so.
Where did he get his vegetables from, this man?
He said he grew them.
He grew them?
Yes.
I don't remember that
Troubadour
that
grew
well.
them. Yeah.
So he's a farmer as well.
Apparently so. He's a man who wears many hats and none at all.
Yeah.
And yet he's never really wearing a hat.
And yet never seen a hat on him. Oh no, I think at the wedding.
Actually, I think sometimes he's wearing a hat. But sometimes. Yeah. He's
Oh, you're so right. It's a farmer's market. He is the farmer.
Jackson could have his own farmer's market.
Yeah, but he had no qualms about that. Mm-hmm. You know, I was talking to my sister as I was prepping for this episode. I was like, I think we talked about it on a recent episode that for some of them, like you don't have to prepare. Like you just have to write down all the notes that are in your mind because you know the show so well, you can watch it from beginning to end. But some of the side characters, I do have to go back in and do some like digging because I don't remember much about that man.
Yeah.
That he grew them. It would make sense, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. But I love Jackson in the Lorelai graduation episode. He just makes me
Oh
giggle.
my gosh. Yes.
It's like he's very sweet. He and Sookie show up for her graduation and they're there and of course deliver the news that Rory never made it. But I love his interaction with Seth MacFarlane when he's like, yeah, you look at your friends in their expensive suits and he's like, hey man, this was 40% off. But also in that same episode, I think that's when they go over to Sookie's for breakfast. And Jackson isn't awake and he's just like on the at the table and he just keeps going Yeah. Lorelai is like talking about Jordan almonds, like aspirin instead of Jordan almonds, and that comes back around in the at the graduation, like as they're leaving. I just love when I think it's the cold open when Lorelai goes, hey, is Jackson in the house? Everybody say, new toy.
I was about to say that.
It's just very cute and very funny. So he does provide that comedic relief, but then we get some of that tenderness in the graduation portion of the episode that he's there. And that
I will say, I think that that's a moment where he's Lorelai's friend. This would be, I love you. And I do too.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
And then I love the kilt storyline in the finale and his for his wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, and how could I forget him in the Bracebridge dinner? Him as Squire Bracebridge. So funny. Of course he does it because he's Sookie's boyfriend. But him as Squire Bracebridge and like the return of Rune and everything that happens there and the fact that he like I think Bootsy plays Hotel California with someone has spoons on their head and someone's banging the drums on their tummy.
I do
lifted up your shirt and played bongos.
Yeah, that's Jackson.
That's
He's
Jackson
drumming on his tummy.
Yeah, tummy.
I have to say, like, I'm still in that mode of being with my niece and
Your
nephew
kid,
where I have to like change some of the words. Like I can't curse. I can't say, oh my God. I have to say, oh my gosh.
Right.
And so sometimes I like drag it off because I like forget.
Yeah.
So like I'm in that mode because I would say belly buddy. That's what your tummy is.
Yeah, of
your
course.
Belly buddy.
Yeah, your belly.
Yeah.
So Jackson, all in all, and Jackson and Sookie in season 2, like it's I would maybe deduct 1 point for them in that season because of the Tisket to Tasket situation. But for the most part, it's still the best of the best.
It's still the best of them, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And when we move into season 3, I think we're still in that phase. Like this is the newlywed phase. They're still bringing comedy and levity to, you know, certain episodes, but they've also layered in the fact that like, again, Jackson and Sookie aren't really communicating well with each other because the 4 and 4 issue comes up.
At the dance marathon.
And it's funny in episode 1 in Lazy Hazy Crazy when they the Gilmore Girls go to their house and Sookie has decked out the entire home in like, I don't know, manly furniture.
Yeah, she wants the house to be manly.
Yeah, she's like, I want you to be happy. He was like, I was happy. And so that to me is like a funny, haha, we didn't realize that you know, we weren't communicating well there, which I guess is kind of what we got in Hammers and Veils in season 2. That like, oh, it's silly, it's a joke. I'm moving in. Oh, I'll move in with you, you know?
But it does take me back to when she had thought about them living together, like the bathroom would be pink. Mm-hmm. Like I always wonder like what made her think she had to have like the manly house now that she had, I guess maybe now that she's a wife, she wants to please her husband and have like a very manly house. I don't know. I felt on the fence about that storyline when we rewatched it. I was kind of like on the side that like, yes, this is very funny, but it also felt kind of like a lot in the way that it was portrayed. But totally. It didn't turn me off from them. I was still
I mean,
very invested.
them pushing that bear back and forth on that on that little ramp outside their home is so funny.
Yeah, and they're so really good scene partners too.
They are like such
anything
good
they're
scene
doing
partners.
Together.
Yeah, I'm in for. I'm so there. But when we get to the dance marathon episode and Sookie tells Lorelai, Jackson tells me that he wants 4 and 4 kids in 4 years. Why did you not talk about this before you got married?
I don't know, because that's wild.
That is
a wild.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
On her body.
On her
That's
body.
crazy.
Correct. And I think we talked about this in last year's episode. It's just a lot to expect of someone without talking to them about it first. If they had this conversation before they got married and Sookie was like, yeah, I'm game. And then all of a sudden they get married and she's like, hold on, I'm not game. That's a different conversation. That's a different conversation entirely. But you didn't even tell your wife that you wanted to have 4 kids in 4 years.
And the other part of this that's funny, though, is that he seems less angry that Sookie is not on the same page with him, but more so that Sookie told Lorelai. And Lorelai had some sort of say in this. Yeah.
I was going to ask, did you feel like Jackson was in the right confronting Lorelai? Like, my childbearing arrangements are between me and Sookie and the Lord, as Luke likes to remind us. Did you feel like it was okay that he was upset with her, or should it have been a conversation between Sookie and Jackson? Because that's where, again, their communication is just, and she says this, she goes, once again, my communication skills, not so good, because Jackson is under the impression that Lorelai told Sookie to immediately inform him that 4 and 4 was crazy. And Lorelai looks at Sookie and is like, Sookie, what? And she's like, yeah, once again, my communication skills not so good. And so they know it. But if, say, I'm trying to put this into perspective. If I'm Sookie, Brett is Jackson, and you are Lorelai.
Fun.
Yay. If I told Brett that you thought something that he wanted, like in relation to children, was crazy, I don't think he would have come at you and been like, and to be fair,
but like Brett and I aren't friends. I mean, Brett and I aren't friends.
Brett and I are friends.
I hate Brett. No, like we don't have a.
You better sign your cards. I love you. None of this we love you shit.
None of this we love you shit. I don't want it from him. No. We don't have a pre-established relationship outside of the two of
Lorelai and Jackson do. That's fair. Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think would give him grounds to get mad at me about it. I do think it would have been way less interesting if they had like dealt with it separately.
Oh,
because they got to pull the main character in.
Plot device wise, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
But just in talking about Jackson as a whole and how a lot of people believe that Jackson has kind of like childish reactions to things. Do you feel like this was one of them? You think so? Okay.
Well, the fact that they are talking about this in the runaround, you know, that's kind of the core of it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. We're all running in a circle and you're addressing this with me right now.
Yeah, but then he comes back and the real conversation is, you know, in the gym during the break. Because that's when Luke gets involved and he gets pulled in.
Yeah.
It's a little silly.
Kooky.
I understand wanting to keep your childbearing arrangements, as he likes to call them, personal. But of course, Sookie's going to talk to Lorelai about it.
Of course
she is. That's so much. 4 kids in 4 years without talking about it before you get married is a big expectation.
By all means.
That's fine. Again,
my mom had 4 and 6.
We talked about that. We literally talked about this in last year's episode. Yeah. My grandma also had 4 and 6. And so I get it. But at the same time,
you got to talk.
You got to talk about
Chit chat.
And that comes back around, which we'll talk about when we talk about season 5. But it's just, once again, their comedy comes from their lack of communication. And I love the way that it's implemented here. But if we're talking about Sookie and Jackson as a couple, it is something that sometimes is kind of like, do you guys talk?
Yeah. Like, as her friend, I think I would have been less like, wow, that's insane. And more like, did you guys want to talk about this before?
Do you guys want to talk about these things? Yeah.
When do you guys talk?
And it's so funny that sometimes Lorelai does say those things to Sookie. Like in I Can't Get Started at the end of season 2, when she's playing the Ella Fitzgerald, I Can't Get Started. And she's like, Sookie, do you even like Jackson? It's so funny. Because like, I love that she does sometimes like say to her, like, what are you doing? What is this? It's very,
what is this
funny.
song?
Yeah. But that to me, I think, was one of the biggest gripes with our listeners, which we will talk about when we kind of get to listener opinions, is that like he really wanted to have a lot of kids in a very short amount of time and felt like I don't think he necessarily pressured Sookie into that. I think that he just had expectations he didn't voice.
That's the thing. It's like, if you want to do that, do it. If you have not talked to your wife about it, do that instead.
Yeah. 100%.
Talk about it first. That's the key. But it is the communication that makes it so funny.
But it is fascinating when we then get to Sookie finding out she's pregnant later in the season.
This is my gripe.
And he's panicked.
He's the expansion, Sookie. The expansion. Like, he keeps saying that. And it's so confusing because once they find out she's pregnant, I think this is the big one. When she finds out she's pregnant, and like, it's so cute the way her and Lorelai like figure this out. But the whole Jackson storyline is that now they have to expand the house because they have to baby proof everything, and the house isn't big enough, and like, he's just like panicking. Like, I think that there's a contractor coming in even.
Better be Tom. Like, better be Tom.
If it's not Tom, we don't want it.
We don't want him. The contractor, Tom.
The contractor, Tom, no one else. But yeah, it's so confusing because you're like, okay, you were so dead set on this, and you guys did come to the agreement that this was something you were going to do together. But what's the panic over? I mean, I guess the panic is over that you're going to have a baby for sure.
And that's the comedic aspect to it, right? Is that like, there is something ironic about Jackson being like, I want 4 kids in 4 years. And the minute that Sookie gets pregnant, he's like, oh shit.
Oh, that's so weird. That means we are going to have a baby.
Exactly. There is something inherently funny about that, but I just find it so fascinating.
It's kind of man. Like, it's kind of very man.
Kind of giving man. Yeah. And what they do.
It's giving man.
And what they do by the end of it, when they do have a very sweet, moment about it, when they're in bed and she's like, Jackson, I'm not getting rid of my knives. And he's like tapping her. He's like, have I told you I'm really excited? That's the endearing part that we always bring it back home to when it comes. When Lorelai says, I don't remember what episode she says this in, but when the two of them argue and then it's like, okay, love you, bye. And they kiss and she goes, and it always ends with a hug. That is Sookie and Jackson. Is that like, despite the bickering or the comedic, just absolute tomfoolery that's happening between the two of them. It always ends with a hug.
Jackson foolery.
Yeah. Jackson foolery. Not Tom. He's the contractor. And don't you forget it.
Contractor?
Tom.
So the funny thing about that scene that you just quoted, though, is she always says, and it ends with a hug, but they kiss.
Yeah.
And I know that it's like metaphorically it all ends well and they end it with a hug.
Always ends with a hug. Yeah.
But they do kiss.
Don't kiss. Don't
kiss.
The other moment I had for like my thoughts on Jackson for season 3 is that I really love that he and Sookie are at Rory's graduation.
I love that because it could have just been Sookie.
It really could have been
Sookie there.
I love that Jackson goes, though. I love that he and Luke are talking about the architecture because Jackson's relationship with Luke is very interesting. It ebbs and flows throughout this entire series. But they're like pals here. They're bros. They're like, oh, look at the architecture. And I love that Lorelai's like, oh, look at those gargoyles.
and talk about like insuring the place and Richard gets involved. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really funny.
Giving man.
It's giving man. But I love that he gets emotional.
Yeah.
With Rory's speech.
Yeah.
There's something really beautiful about that. And that's the endearing part that comes back around from Lorelai's graduation. It's like he still shows up for those big moments. And I love that.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
He's a Gilmore Girls supporter.
He is.
For sure.
But I do feel like that fades as he becomes a parent because, of course, Sookie is pregnant here. They have not had their first. Davy hasn't been born yet. So.
Yeah. Davy or Colgate.
Or Colgate, exactly. And so I think that will start to fade a little bit in the ways that he shows up. Also, Rory gets older. She goes to college. It's, things change. Things shift.
Things change.
But on the whole, I would say by the time we get to the end of season 3, I'm still like, I just love their relationship. I love what they bring to the table. Yeah. I love the comedic relief that they're bringing, especially in the finale episode of Rory's graduation. Sookie kind of continuously like going through the aisles trying to take pictures. She's such a stage mom.
Yeah.
And Jackson like admiring all of the architecture and the two of them basically blubbering at Rory's speech. It's very sweet.
As do I, y'all. Like, if you're not crying, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that the mishaps that happen in season 3 with them only really make me appreciate them more as a couple in the show. Like if we're looking at it like the way that we do on Patreon, where we like view everything through like a fine tooth comb, magnifying glass. I think there's so many things that you can say is wrong with Jackson or criticize him for if he is like your like IRL BFF's IRL boyfriend, that you're kind of like, okay. But within the show, love him. Love what they do to the story. Love what they bring to the Gilmore Girls. And at this point, love.
But as we move through the later seasons, I do feel like they're like the phases of their relationships as they unfold, their characters shift and the purpose that they serve within the narrative also shifts, which is understandable because as you move through life, you are inevitably going to shift in the world around you. And especially as you become parents, which is what happens with Sookie and Jackson. And we had a lot of people write in their opinions about Sookie and Jackson, mostly Jackson, and how they feel about him and, you know, their relationship, which I did share a little bit about earlier, but we wanted to expand on that. So we wanted to share a little bit more about how we felt about them in the later seasons.
And we'll have more to say on that in the next episode.